Top of the morning to you. This is Monday with Friday, preparing you for a Christmas week ahead. My quote is a gift from one of the many Burmese congregations with whom I work. Even people who aren't religious or Christians or don't read the Bible know, perhaps by heart, courtesy of Handel's Messiah, a verse from the prophecy of Isaiah. 2,800 years ago, Isaiah wrote, "For unto us a child is born, to us a son is given, and the government will be on his shoulders, and his name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace." That verse is frequently referenced at Christmas for obvious reasons. I wonder what meaning we could derive from "the government shall be upon his shoulders," especially for people who live in countries that they love to reference as Christian. I'm pretty sure that Isaiah did not mean government in the way we use the word, and especially not with any of our popular understandings of politics, including party preference, partisanship, power grab, people manipulation, gerrymandering, control, abuse, and the regular shenanigans involving greed, deception, excesses, and favoritism of which politicians are frequently accused. And yet, this government that shall be upon the shoulders of the child born to us shall very much be something political, where politics for him and for Jesus is about righteousness, justice, and salvation. I repeat, government should always be about righteousness, justice, and salvation. You've heard me more than once define politics in this way, that politics always involves the intersection of three things: people, power, and purse, or resources. Always. When a politician does good, he or she, a person, does with his or her influence and power something good for other people, masses of other people, which delivers those people resources that increase and improve their quality of life, the good of all. When a politician behaves badly, he or she, a person, does with their influence and power something that hurts or harms or robs or diminishes other people, masses of other people, that usually involves diminishing, reducing, or even removing or cutting off their access to resources of some kind or another. The resource may be anything ranging from material goods to human rights to power. When the child we celebrate born at Christmas became a man and took the government upon his shoulder, he did not do it by leveraging Caesar or taking Rome by force. He did not do it by becoming a politician, and a corrupt politician at that. He did it by healing the sick, helping the weak, restoring sight to the blind, restoring the use of limbs to those who are paraplegic or quadriplegics, and restoring the wholeness of flesh to those who had a terrible disease. He restored people's social status in society, wherein there became a place for everyone whom others had thrown out of the social context. He fed the hungry and constantly condemned greed and the imbalance of wealth that created poverty. Indeed, in his manifesto in Luke chapter 4, he declared a perennial jubilee wherein debts would always be forgiven, not just once every 50 years, but perennially forgiven day to day, where stolen lands and properties and power would be restored and the imprisoned released. While the religious people today might see in that jubilee some pictures of forgiveness of sin and salvation that they interpret as related to an afterlife, heaven, it is a tragedy for those same religious persons to overlook the very obvious and present social salvation with which government should be occupied. You see, we should should pursue Jubilee in our contemporary societies just as it was meant to be in its very first iteration in Hebrew society. Jubilee and salvation of society was always, in the very beginning, a social issue in the Hebrew society. And we need to reclaim that today. What use is salvation if it only gives us whatever we mean by heaven, but it never transforms our world as well and take away the hell that people live in today's society? People who celebrate Christmas should have a more deliberate and conscious approach to governments of any kind, whether it's the people who govern our churches or mosques or mandirs or temples or synagogues or our denominations. Christmas should alert us to the kinds of people we allow to govern our school boards or our PTAs, our local government or national government. We cannot deliberately choose a Barabbas on the one hand and then claim on the other that the government is upon Jesus' shoulders. That amounts to hypocrisy at best, or extreme folly and danger at worst. We cannot choose for a leader someone who is a proven and consistent liar, sex offender, fraudster, race baiter, insurrectionist, and violence-foghorn, who would imprison those who keep the law and release those who break the law, and then say to our neighbors, "Peace on earth, goodwill to men." You would not be taken seriously. The governments of our time, whether in America or England or Jamaica or China or India or Trinidad and Tobago or anywhere in the world, do not need to be or become religions or religious, and their nations do not need to be theocracies. No. But such governments need to pursue righteousness and justice for all their people. Those are universal values. And they cannot do that unless they are, just like Jesus, that child born to us, compassionate, righteous, just, and as John's Gospel describes him, full of grace and truth. It should have been enough to say to a Christian in today's America or anywhere else in the world that a government leader who not only lies, but is regarded as one of the world's most frequent and inveterate liars, who is a convicted criminal 34 times over, a sex offender, and a frequent philanderer, it should be enough to say to such people that such a person should not be given the reins of government, especially since such persons who favor a man like this always seem to insist that the government is God's government. I am confident that Jesus, full of grace and truth, would never choose a man like this with a band of others just like he and depraved as he, and then say, this is God's choice. Well, Jesus did choose Judas, yes, but that was to disciple him, not to give him leadership. Now, if Al Mohler and Franklin Graham and such others really want to be evangelical and evangelists, they should give a thought to that. Finally, the Christian people who choose to lecture, correct, or express disappointment in other people, other Christian people, for denouncing Donald Trump, and who choose to trade their decade-old friendships or even their familial relations for their allegiance to Trump, need one more thing to chew upon. Those people know the Bible, Ephesians 4 verse 3, that affirms that the Holy Spirit creates unity between people. Donald Trump is a most divisive and polarizing, unrepentant, violent, deceitful, and duplicitous man who, by virtue of being so rabidly divisive, proves he is completely devoid of the Holy Spirit. Our Christian friends and relatives must now examine themselves regarding how and why they so easily embrace this man and relegate to second-class importance, if any importance at all, their supposed brotherhood and sisterhood with their fellow Christians who are only being faithful in keeping the tradition of the prophets and of John the Baptist and of Jesus, in calling out the danger in deceitful and destructive leaders when we see it. This will harm all of us, and we see it already. And we believe in Ezekiel chapter 33, where watchmen must watch, so that we could avoid the valley of dry bones 4 chapters later in chapter 37. Perhaps if these people who favor a man like Donald Trump at the expense of their long friendships and relationships with relatives and friends, perhaps if they did some introspection and came out repentant and wiser at the end, they could give the rest of us and their respective nations a most worthy Christmas gift, wherein they remove their allegiance for the government to be upon Barabbas' shoulder, to be upon the shoulders of Jesus. I'm Michael Friday, and your week just got better. Happy and holy Christmas. I'll see you again next year. Happy Monday all the way to Friday.